Fun. Good to see you all again. I saw some of your faces last month, and I can't believe we're already like halfway through the year in our series. And we have one additional gathering next month, but then we'll take a break. Lots of people are on vacations for August, and we'll have a couple more. So I'll drop in the chat just the schedule for the rest of our Vibe Tribe series and would love, as always, for as many people that can make it to join. We also do record these, just the beginning portions as a reminder, so that we'll be able to post those on YouTube and share out more of the learning share section. And then we'll stop for the discussion portion to make sure that it's a safe space just to have open conversation and dialogue. So that's how we'll structure today as well. If you have questions that come up, definitely pop them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that. And if there's time to like squeeze it in as Jen is talking, I will do that. But otherwise, we'll hold and have a Q&A and discussion at the end. So just in terms of DJ, I know you and Jen work super closely, but I did want to share a little bit for folks who don't know Jen as well yet, that she's got over 25 years experience in holistic health and wellness and worked alongside some pretty well-known people like Deepak Chopra, David Simon, and focuses on the somatic body work area and is an Ayurvedic consultant, health coach, leadership coach, and also core faculty member of HCI since her graduation from the program. So, Jen, you do so many things, a lot of things. I'm so glad that you're here to share with us on this topic. I think it's going to be really interesting. And with that, DJ, I'll turn it over to you to do a more
Great.
intro.
Great. So
Thanks,
go back in
Lauren.
time, goodness, about 15 years, maybe a little longer. And I met Jen because my acupuncturist had this lovely person in her office I kept seeing, kind of whisk by as she was working with other people. And she had a table set up as well. And I thought she must do something interesting. And one day we connected, we were introduced, and Jen said to me, I'm thinking about going through the other kind of coaching. The coaching I do is really around the somatic work that I do and the hands-on healing. And I said, cool. Well, we have a school. And maybe it wasn't quite 15 years ago that we had that conversation. But bottom line in all of that is one day she looked at me and she said, I think I'm going to come through the school, but I need to know, do you have everything buttoned down in this program? And I was like, yes, we do. Yes, we do. I started talking about the amazing faculty and how we came online and all that stuff. And so it's really interesting to go from knowing each other sort of in the space of me being a client or a patient, and then having her come into the leadership side of the coaching and integrate all of that, and then me be a part of that. And I will tell you that I still see Jen once a month for me because, as all of you who know me know, that I love the energy work and I like knowing what's going on in my body as far as the energetic connections and disconnections. And she speaks to that in such a way that I can not only integrate it, but learn from it, pull out the next best thing for me to be offering. And so it's been an amazing partnership. And I'm so grateful for this beautiful soul, and not only in my life, but in the lives of those who go through the program. And we're going to be expanding her work as we partner this way. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jen, because I know you've got a lot of content as always. And as I do, I want to just say to all of you, the polyvagal theory and this whole body of neuroscience came online between 2005 and 2010, as far as coaching is related. Before then, the coaching practice came from human potential performance, the integration of spirituality and ontology, sort of the study of being. There were a lot of different developmental models that were moving. And the integration of neuroscience became important in helping systems and leaders in major systems, organizational systems, understand and assign value to what we were doing in the early stages of coaching. So, with that as a frame of mind, know that it didn't start with neuroscience. Neuroscience really wasn't a thing with the general population, it was held for hospital systems and doctors. But it has been integrated in such a way that it's become respected. And so now there's also a debate about the polyvagal theory, and I'm going to hand it to Jen to actually take you through what it means, how it shows up in coaching, and all that.
Great. Thank you, both Lauren and DJ. So, we're going to be talking about polyvagal theory and all that it means. But first, let's start with a little bit of centering and grounding as we come into this space together. And I was describing a metaphor that I use with my clients just before you all came on to DJ and Lauren. And the metaphor is that when we establish boundaries for ourselves, it's like being inside of your own personal trampoline. And so I'm going to invite you to find yourself, create a little bit of a bounce, even if you're seated or standing, create a little bit of a bounce in your body, a little bit of a somatic wake up and hello to your inner core. Yeah, notice that stretch that just came in for Lauren, right? Sometimes a stretch will come in or a big breath. Let's find ourselves on our personal trampolines and let's just imagine that net that's around us and go ahead and press into the net. You might use the camera to press into our Hollywood square that we each get to have our individual space here and to explore individual space and be part of the back body and above us and below us. And as we do, use your eyes to orient to your own personal space that you're in, stretching your eyes to the right, to the left, down and up. Find the corners of your periphery and let
Hmm.
that deep breath come in as you center yourself into your personal space, just knowing that you've established a container where you can receive what we have to share today, and you can also share and play in our shared trampoline that we're all playing in together today. So I hope that was helpful to settle us in. And I'm going to pop right into the screen share. Hey, I did it. I like to celebrate myself. So, so here we are, discussing polyvagal theory and coaching and how it creates the space for co-regulation, for coaching presence, and returning clients to coachable capacity. So, as DJ alluded to, and many of you may be aware of already, polyvagal theory is the science in terms of the neuroscience. How does this actually work inside the body is being questioned. And it's always been a theory. It is never been a this is distinctively how it works. In its application in therapy, we're going to be looking today at the polyvagal ladder, which is a really beautiful metaphor for how we live and work inside of our bodies, inside of our capacity, how our capacity expands and diminishes with threat in all of its forms. And that theory was developed by Deb Dana, who worked really closely with Stephen Porges, who created this idea of polyvagal theory looking at neonates back in 1977. The year I was born is the year that this theory was born, which fascinates me. And her work has been very much about using it therapeutically. And that is the context that we're exploring this in as coaches. So today's point is not to debate the exact inner workings of our nervous system. It's rather to look at how do we recognize shifts in client state, help clients to move from reactivity to reflection through all the things that the polyvagal theory makes available to us. And as a really useful tool that helps clients to maybe not feel so ashamed of normal reactions and responses that are happening physiologically and translating into our visual, verbal responses to things. So move us on my screen here. So when we think about polyvagal theory through the coaching lens, and I promise we'll be diving into what it shows us here, but what we're going to see is that client state influences their capacity to, as I like to say, to receive. So, we always talk about, and HCI has done a great job of preparing us to understand that as coaches, we're coming along as the navigator, right? The coach is very much the client is very much in the driver's seat, and we're navigating, and we might be asking all those questions that help them understand where they're going today, why it's important to them to arrive in that place, how do they want to get there, what twists and turns are we going to take in the process. And what we'll see is that when there are when these adaptations, these stress adaptations come on board, the now 6 Fs, which really, like, if you read about it, there might be like 20 F words that we're now using, like the fight, the flawn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to use 6 today, but when those adaptations come on board, they diminish the client's capacity. And as coaches, we're going to look at that too. They might diminish our capacity to be with our clients in an open, co-relational way. So, the client's capacity may be diminished in terms of their ability to access curiosity, their ability to reflect. This might be that place where they look at you really fatigued and say, like, I don't know, just tell me the answer. For community, communication, learning, decision making, all these pieces, and our ability to come into that co-relational presence with the client may diminish as these adaptations come on board. And in what we're seeing as we consider these somatic sort of competencies against the ICF competencies is that bringing in polyvagal awareness is not about fixing the client state. So we're not going to use the things that we discussed today to say, oh, I know how to make you feel better. Instead, we're going to use these somatic lens, and let's map them now against the ICF competencies. When we notice the client state, when we help the client to see their own state, we are actively listening. When we step into self-regulation, and even if a client is activated and their activation in turn activates us, we can step back into our own trampoline, and we can maintain presence. We can create relational safety, which is a piece that we talk a lot about in somatic relationship. This is an aspect of cultivating safety and rapport. And then restoring reflection and choice for our clients through these through somatic methods helps them to evoke awareness. So you can see that when we pull these things into the context of coaching, that they're very much side by side, right? It's not just because somebody comes in with emotion, we haven't suddenly jumped into therapy. We can use these techniques and stay in our presence as coaches. We can stay with our coaching hat on and within our scope of practice. Okay. So as we look at this ladder, the first thing I'm going to draw our attention to, and I'm going to invite you into a couple of ways to share during this time. But as we look at the ladder as a whole right now, what I want to draw your attention to is that Deb Dana's version of the polyvagal ladder is the 3 rungs. And if you look over on the right side of the screen here, what you'll see is that that 3 rung ladder is sort of at the top of the ladder. We have this ventral vagal state is what it's called in polyvagal theory. And that's meant to reference like the being in the sort of in the front towards connection. I'm open, I'm available. I am able to resource, to be present. I'm grounded. I'm able to be in relationship with others. The middle of the Deb Dana original ladder reference the mobilized survival state, which is going to be here, fight, flight, and fine. That's one of the new F's that have come online for us. And then at the bottom of her 3 rung ladder was the dorsal vagal, the like back body, meaning like I am flopping back. I'm no longer connected. I'm in this disconnected state and I'm shut down. And we're going to talk about fawning, freezing, and then this flop fold. We've also heard faint as another F that's come online. These are sort of the new Fs that are that are in our language now when we talk about this theory. But first, I want to call your attention to the fact that these are, in fact, adaptations. So, when we are under stress, which we are frequently under stress, and as leaders, the people we coach, the high performers that we work with, are quite frequently responding and reacting to something outside of themselves, something in their periphery. So, that connected state is very calm. It's not necessarily parasympathetic. We're going to stay out of like trying to label that since it's not what we're talking about today. But it's just that calm, open. I can do my job today. I can perform. I don't feel inhibited. And as more energy comes in, like I need to do something about this, we're moving into that mobilized state. And as we have no more energy to give, as we become depleted, we're down in that disconnected state. So let's look at these. And my invitation, we're going to stay here a while, friends. So there we go. My invitation to you as we're moving through this is to pop into the chat what, in your experience, each state looks like when you're seeing a client move into it. So it might be a client, it could be a colleague, it could be somebody that maybe has reported to you in the past, as we often use those examples in coaching school. Maybe it's your partner. But what does it physically look like to you? How do you see this cueing in your client? Or maybe what does it sound like to you? And just pop those into the chat as we go. So we've already talked about that connected ventral vagal state, and that's going to be grounded, emotionally flexible. When we see that our clients fully available, they're really with us in our coaching relationship. They're in the driver's seat. They're able to say where they're going and why. And one of the ways that we can move into the ventral vagal state is through awe, inspiring awe, nature, through co-regulation. So with that presencing with each other. So in the coach's seat, you can help someone move into that state by being on your own trampoline and in your own back body and creating the space for the client to move into that on their own. Fight. fight response is going to be that protective strategy of control or confrontation. And, the person you can see right there becoming assertive, strong, angry, ready to defend. It's when I'm bracing up for the fight. You might hear urgency, blame, escalation. Our coaching focus when it comes to fight response can be one in our own body to avoid matching the intensity, to slow the pacing, the invitation. Can we slow this down right now? To maintain your grounded presence and to support reflection. These are ways that we can show up with the fight response. And Lauren, if you want to pepper in, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, we're getting some added comments in here around just tight jaw, holding back words, crossed like eyebrow. Um, and
Furrowed
then
eyebrows.
yeah, using the word intensity to help them notice. Lots of self-preservation and defensiveness in their language.
Mm-hmm.
And Alice shared she sees number 4 a lot in clients. Don't worry about me, I'm okay. I know we haven't gotten all the way down there,
Yeah,
but
we'll get there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then fidgety, louder voices, pace quickens, tapping
Mm.
on desk, intense language, pressed speech.
Yeah. And we're gonna let's pull some of those latter ones into flight as well.
Mhm.
So as we think about flight, the 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 overwhelming response is I need to get away from this. And we see this in all sorts of ways, right? It might not look like actually leaving, but sometimes there's a little bit of a aggressiveness, like a little bit of that fight that comes through in order to exit the situation or create the context in which they can exit, or sometimes making it someone else's fault so I can exit. If I sign the blame, I can leave and I don't have to be here anymore, right? So there's the over talking happens in flight, circuitous stories, rapid problem solving. If I can come up with a solution, intellectualizing, productive urgency. How often do we see that in our high performers?
There's one that came through
Yeah.
just responding to an inquiry with, I just want to jump out the window, like the ultimate avoidance. And then asking the coach for the answer comes from that space too. That was shared.
Absolutely. Great observations, everyone. And the inability to pause, right? When you say, can we slow this down? But blah, blah, blah. I actually had someone a couple of days ago say, do I have to? Which is fabulous. And I said, you don't have to do anything, but it might be useful. The coaching focus with flight, slowing the pace again, reconnecting to present awareness. So, what is happening right now? Let's slow this down by finding out what are you noticing in your system right now? So we can get out of that enmeshment of story over sensation and pull those apart. And then a shift, well, I just said it, a shift from cognition to sensation is the other way that we can help people come out of flight.
Yeah, and just throwing in DJ sharing, finding this to be true for a lot of coaches, thinking we must always hold it together, like the I'm fine, coaches feeling that way.
Mhm.
And then also seeing I'm fine in residents and fight and flight in faculty.
Great. Yeah. So let's talk about fine on
Mhm.
that note, because you're absolutely right, DJ. And I think there's a prevailing sense, not only in coaches, but in many of the people that we coach as leaders who are trying to hold it together in the context of the greater things that are going on in our world and our environment right now, is to really just appear like we know what we're doing and we're infallible, which of course we know is not true. So that I'll just push through it, I'll keep it together. I'm fine. I have a polished way of presenting myself, and I'm not going to show up with a hair out of place, with a bit of makeup smeared. We're going to be in our perfect suit. Uh, Emotional minimization. This is a big one. Not attending to my own emotions, not being willing to attend to someone else's emotions. So this might show up as a leader or as a coach in not really having space for someone to have a normal emotional response. That's very much an I'm fine. I need to keep the borders of emotional regulation between medium low and medium high, and not experience the big highs and not experience the big lows. Uh, Smiling while distressed with the wide eyes that communicates something else. And excessive competence. And I'll just share, I have a client who I had to call it to her attention, and now we joke about it frequently, that her way of holding fine, and this is what she thought executive presence looked like. And in her striving to move into an executive role, she felt that she had to do, and this is her face. I mean, she literally pushed her lips together and made her eyes wide. And would draw her chin back. Talk about fine, like a mime almost. And so I had to draw her attention to it and say, like, when you notice this sensation of drawing your lips together, when you notice the sensation, your eyes becoming bigger, when you notice that your chin retracts and you feel that at the back of your neck, that's cue. You're in this response. The coaching focus here is to explore that incongruence between what they're actually feeling and what they're presenting, to increase their body awareness, as I just shared in that example, to normalize emotional complexity. It's okay to get out on the peripheries of emotion and sensation, and encourage authenticity over performance, which is a huge one. Was there anything else to add on fine, Lauren?
Yeah, there's just kind of interesting um, verbiage around like, it's a lie, can be not true for the person. And then also someone, Madeline sharing, seeing it as an emotional disconnection.
Yeah.
So an unintentional lie almost.
Yes, that's right. An unintentional lie. Great. So fawning. Move to my fawning space here. So when I think about fawning, and this is one of the ways that I have a dear, most embodied mentor who is the person who mentors me through somatic work and the body work that I do in the somatic world. And she said it so well that fawning is like having one foot on the rung of dorsal vagal disconnected state and one foot on the rung of mobilized survival state. And the reason why that's true is because you hyper attend in fawning to everyone around you, but you shut yourself down. So what I am experiencing is not important. What everyone else is experiencing is where my attention needs to be. And we see a lot of like inner child wounds that come out in this. There's a new movement to using internal family systems in coaching, which I love, and you see a lot of it there as well. So in fawning, we are, keep others happy and safe in order to keep myself safe. And the sorry, I lost my place. The excessive agreement, like I pancake myself, I just flatline myself so that everybody else is happy. People pleasing, fear of disappointing others, seeking approval excessively. I'm looking for you to say it's okay. Do you think I'm okay? Do you still think I'm okay? And loss of self-reference, which I think is a huge one that we see, helping our clients to reorient to what is it that you want is there an authentic heart desire that is emerging here? And it's one of the things that when I work with people who are very dysregulated throughout the coaching journey, as we move towards being more regulated, desire begins to emerge again. And they're like, it's been so long since I felt an authentic desire, but that's kind of a classic way that you see fawning start to ease back. So the coaching focus here is to strengthen self-awareness, invite authentic responses, normalize the trampoline boundaries. It's a big important one. Boundaries are not, in fact, for you to put around others. They're your own personal safety net. And to reinforce internal authority. And I'll often reference here, what are your internal resources that you want to draw into this session? Would you like to access breath? Would you like to access a personal visualization? Something along those lines, a somatic, something that you can do with your body. So, Lauren, what are you seeing there in the chat?
Yeah, we have got talking about speaking in third person as well, as if everything's outside of
Mhm.
self, right?
Great.
Yeah, and George mentioned earlier, work now, feel later. So that
Ah.
that priority there, yeah.
Yeah, work now, feel later comes in fawn, and it comes in especially if I'm over checking in with everyone around me while I'm doing that, and it also comes in the freeze. So we
Mm.
see a little bit of that with in freeze response. Yeah.
And then over delivering as well goes along with that.
Yeah, great noticing everyone. And then as we move into freeze here, freezing is that protective immobility response. And, in true big T, capital T trauma, especially if there's been an aggressor, the freeze response is one of the ones that elicits, I want to say, just in my personal experience working with a lot of people with trauma, uh, elicits the most shame. Like, why didn't I act? Why didn't I do something to stop this from happening? So, a freeze response is and I can't move. And it sometimes frequently actually happens when there's been a long, hyperextended period of being in that mobilized survival state and being in one of those that we already talked about above, where the nervous system has become attuned to uh, being overly performative, fighting, flight, being in flight, for such the danger is gone, but I am still stuck in this state. And my system, which is a brilliant, wise system that is protecting me, has been, which is always scanning for danger. The system's always on looking. It doesn't notice it right away sometimes, but it's always looking. And a healthy system can also like come back to self. And so if the system has been stuck in like hyper scan, hyper alertness, I need to be looking out because something is always dangerous, then we frequently see people that drop into freeze and sort of stay there for a while, or into the flop and fold where they just can't perform. Like it's just not available. Or I can't think anymore. You hear that. Like I don't have cognition anymore. I'm just exhausted. So confusion, stuckness, overwhelm, disassociation, mental fog. And the coaching focus here is to reduce pressure, orient the client to safety, use grounding. So can I get myself to solid grounds? Can I get into a space again where I trust my own internal safety systems that I can rely upon here without needing external resource? And supporting the small achievable steps, like you've heard about it in really deep depression, just run the dishwasher twice. I don't know if you've heard that that analogy, but when the dishwasher wasn't working and the person couldn't handle washing the dishes by hand, We'll just run it twice. It's okay, and the dishes will then be done. So the little steps. Lauren, what do you see?
Yeah, there's a comment around the pandemic experience,
Mhm.
sort of like a forced freeze that some are still becoming unstuck from.
Yes, ma'am.
Tasha shared that. That's
Yes,
an
thank you,
interesting
Tasha. That's true. I'm seeing it pervasively in a good way, perhaps.
coming out of that. And then frozen around zombied is the language we hear from some leaders about their employees in change mode. That's what DJ shared.
hmm Yeah, zombies to zealots. There you go. And kind of just building on that is this fold, flop, or faint is the other word that has been coming in, and that one kind of makes me smile as I think about the old, black and white movies with the I literally can't handle this, and she falls away. But the collapsing and giving up, it's too much. And I don't want to make light of that because it's a true end state where the system just doesn't have any more resource within it. And, again, sometimes it happens after being in mobilized state too long. Sometimes something will push us right down into there. Uh, Again, a healthy nervous system can run up and down the ladder a lot, sometimes in a day. Sometimes you can have a little bit of a taste of these without being truly hijacked by them because they are adaptations. They are not necessarily, um, certainly not a permanent state. And again, we're using this in a metaphoric way as we help our clients understand or track where am I in my system right now. But the fold response here, protective collapse responds with reduced energy. So hopelessness, shame, resignation, low motivation, inability to access options. And, if we were in the neuroscience, it might be like, okay, I don't have as much access to this prefrontal cortex. I'm sort of living in the limbic a little bit. Uh, so we might be able to help them feel what they can perceive. Like what is available to feel into right now. Restore small moments of agency, reinforce choice, that you do actually have a choice here. Avoid premature positivity, so we're not trying to cheerlead them out of this. And prioritize stabilization. Right. That's what's most important here, again, is finding that solid ground and that personal sense of safety.
Yeah, and it was shared that the three F's are very apparent now when jobs become insecure,
Mm,
and that many are right now, right?
yeah,
And this one's an interesting point too from Tasha, thinking around social media impact that has a freeze effect on people, and that maybe the flop folds can actually be a goal for some of this influences from society, even.
I like that.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then DJ shared one of the reasons we're highlighting energy and emotions is to help coaches coach the language to find that language for what they're experiencing.
absolutely. It's not just the client,
Mhm.
when and we are the energy holders, right? We're the space holders for people to be able to start their own healing journey. That's what we're doing as coaches, is creating a container in which that can happen. We're not doing it for them. We're just creating space and then letting that system, that brilliant, wise system that's in front of you, find its own way up and down the ladder. And as I say, I knew I was going to do that. As I say to clients, where are you on the proverbial ladder? So I really like to reference this, and DJ's going to send out, or Lauren will post an article here at the end that references that. And this this metaphor, this ladder, and you all are welcome to use it, gives clients permission to have normal responses, to track themselves. Where are you on the proverbial ladder today? What's showing up with you as you come in the door? How would you like to move out of it? And in the somatic lens, we need action. When you're down here, you need action to come back up. So it might be like you need to get on a treadmill and run fast, you know, to activate, get more energy, activate your system a little bit so we can come back up. And if you can do that for 5 minutes, that's good enough, if you're really down here. Or we can stand up and shake, or we can jump up and down. Let's do something to instigate a little bit of activity inside of this system. Okay. So as we've been calling attention to, the adaptive survival strategies are these 6 Fs. They're not character flaws. Sometimes, frankly, when you're watching a client be stuck in one adaptation over and over and over again, it can be a little bit maddening. And sometimes you just want to shake the answer right into them. You're like, I know the answer. I just reminded myself of when my daughter was a baby and she had that classic toy with the shapes that you put the 3-dimensional shapes into the ball with the matching hole. And I said to my best friend, I just want to take it from her and do it because I can do that. It's like giving the space for the baby to learn that they can put the shape through the hole and find the right outlet is sometimes painful as a coach, but it's not a character flaw. It is a normal physiological response to what is happening in that client's life. And if we can help, not try to take away their protection, not try to tell them not to go into fight or flight, but how can you resource yourself when you're in that state to move back up the ladder? How can you take a breath? Or, we use these um, uh, techniques that I was sharing to help them find their way back up. And in that process, we help them recognize the response they're having, remain regulated, reduce their shame, and repair agency and connection. They get to repair their agency and their ability to connect back to you as you provide safety and resource and the container in which they can do that. So, along those lines, reclaiming coachability, that's what we're helping people to do. And, we just went through all of these Fs, and I had you guys talk about what does it look like, what does it sound like as clients move through those adaptations. But what do they actually present with when they are not coachable? So I've listed some things here: circular thinking, inability to reflect, that escalating intensity, inability to access options, numbness or collapse. I've seen that. I've seen clients come in just defeated, tears in their eyes. I've got nothing today. I thought about canceling. I came anyway. Excessive compliance, where they're just like, just tell me what to do. And then they're like, yeah, that's what I want to do. You're like, do you? Because I just came up with that for you. It doesn't sound authentic. And cognitive overwhelm. that exhaustion that we've described already. And so I've created a PDF for you because, we could spend all day exploring different somatic pathways for um, helping people out of these adaptations, helping people find their way back up the ladder. And this just gives you a little place to start from. And I just want to encourage you to download that. It's an automatic download from my website. You can see it there. But this gives you some things that you can play with. I know there's some group right now that is group coaching with each other. If you have a coach colleague that you're trading with, that's a great place to just try some of these things. If you have a teenager or a child at home, it's also a great place to try some of these things. Do not recommend doing that with your partner. Directing them into a coaching experience has never worked well in my experience. But there's lots of ways that you can play with these and maybe even with yourself. If you notice that you are hijacked to use, for example, their under sensory grounding, we did orienting visually to the room as we came into the space together. That's something you can do to reclaim yourself if your client gets gets going with something or has a story that triggers you and your response, which is what we're getting ready to talk about. You can just take a glance into the corners of the room as you think in order to come back into your body so that you can continue to coach. So that's a resource for you. Let's bring this into our nervous systems and how this impacts us as coaches. So we might have the impulse to respond in the same way that our client shows up. And we can practice our emotional intelligence in the session and monitor our urgency, our fixing impulse, our over empathy, anxiety, performance pressure, desire for resolution. Uh, Recently, I had a client who was really being bullied by her bosses. And I called DJ. I said, DJ, I just had something that I need to talk through with you. And I said, I'm really noticing my mama bear is coming out and I want to fix this for her. And DJ said, okay, so notice that's your mama bear. What other uh, avatar could you call on right now instead of mama bear? And we landed on mediator in that space, and that made a lot more sense, and it really diffused my system to come through it from that perspective. So co-regulation with our clients, which is a foundational piece of polyvagal theory, is that every time that we're in relationship, we're in the space of co-regulation. Begins with our self-regulation. So I'm going to take down the screen here so we can bring this into a group discussion. But I'm curious which client responses activate you the most. What are those stories like I just shared that pop into your mind as you consider these different adaptations and maybe the ways that they've shown up for you when you're in session as coach, or perhaps what's happened with your clients, what happens inside of you, what are your sensations when a client cries or becomes angry and inflames, shuts down, or is like super resistance and doesn't want to engage and is pushing back on everything that you've worked on, over talking or doing that like fine masking. So I'll take this down. Let's come into the room.
And Lauren, if you can allow everybody to come off mute for this part of it, and I'll
Yeah.
just start. I taught a Malaysian group on Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was a team coaching demonstration, and in their paperwork that we're presenting as, slide content, there is what's changed for them is the war in Iran, the US war in Iran. And I noticed, and I'm noticing it in a lot of language now, that what happens with me is I wanted to apologize for that. I literally said, I had to stop for a second and go back to them and their experience of that as it related to how they were moving chemicals through, as a resource for stuff that they manufacture. And it was just fascinating to watch myself inside of that, wanting to apologize for the war in Iran. And I think the geopolitical conversation in our client base, and I'm going to say this for all of us, has become something that has been stuffed down for so long because it's not appropriate, particularly in medicine, particularly in coaching, to have an opinion or to take a stand. And and my sense is we're going to have to come to terms with finding language that invites a deeper connection around justice. And so that's been really at play for me. So that's one thing that's at play. And I'm noticing how I get pulled into it and have to really recalibrate.
Who else? Take yourself off mute.
Hello, everyone. I'm thinking about a particular client that I felt such a disconnect with, and it was more from her. Everything's fine, everything's great, but and then all these other things were going on that she would talk about, but it was all fine. And the response in the chat that talked about the ability for the coach or for me to have thought of that just as an emotional disconnect, I think would have been helpful in our time together.
Beautiful, Sharon.
Bill?
I think about frustrating experiences with clients, and it's generally in the category of them displaying behaviors or attitudes that I myself have that I don't like about myself. And it's hard. It sounds odd to say it that way, but it feels true in my body.
It is true. It is true in your body because I mean, like as Alice would present when we were presenting our class together, the mirror neurons. But whenever someone holds up that mirror to a true experience of your own, you are going to go into your own adaptation, right? Like that's the normal piece. That's the body responding to a perceived stressor. And then just to be able to notice that it is something that is really coming online for me. And I've been working with this for years, but it's really coming online for me right now is when it happens, when I get drawn in, my body is being drawn forward into a client's experience, into what they are experiencing. And I'm emotionally over empathizing with them. So I'm now sensing it in my own system. I go, isn't that interesting?
Mm.
And I just say, I notice this is happening in my own body. I don't necessarily, sometimes I say it out loud if it's going to be helpful in reflection, but often I just say, I notice it in my own mind, and then I can move back on just because I acknowledged it.
Yeah, I try to step back and just remind myself it's about them, it's not about me.
Yeah,
And that's
right.
part of letting go, acknowledging and letting go that I'm feeling this.
Mhm.
So
But I also find that when I see a client struggle with something, afterwards I get to self-reflect and think how I might self-improve.
that's right.
Mhm.
That's right. We have that as a resource. Yeah. I see your hand raised and I don't know your first name.
Oh, Brad,
Brad.
sorry.
Brad, thank you.
Jen, really, really fascinating. I actually had a comment more than a
Sure.
to share. Just at Northwell, there's a whole Institute of Bioelectric Medicine, which has been formed now. And there's the concept is really around how over nervous stimulation is a pro-inflammatory state, which
Yes.
is causing all of
Oh, I'm
these
so excited.
chronic disease manifestations.
Yes.
And one of the premier neuroscientist is actually working on vagus nerve stimulators
Ah,
help as reduction. But in listening to you, you're doing this, without the vagus nerve stimulator. And I'm curious, or maybe it's something you might want to look at for clients of yours that may have some chronic conditions, whether this kind of therapy really helps with their chronic disease states besides their emotional states, because I feel there's something here.
I'm so excited that you brought that up, and I want to talk to you forever about it. I know we're at the end of our time, but I just want to say that's actually how I came into this work.
Oh,
I'm a health coach first, and I came into the somatic work as a response to working with clients with autoimmune disease,
oh my God, yeah.
helping them with their vagus nerve overwhelm, which changed the course of their autoimmune disease. In some case, cleared it completely, which I did in
Yeah.
my own body, and then and then onward and forward. So yeah,
I'd love to talk to you offline about it
let's do
sometime,
it.
for sure, because there's a whole science that's being created now in an
Yeah.
industry around this. So I
Yeah.
really think you're touched on something really, really fascinating.
And
Yes.
it's fun that there's some kind of mechanics
Yeah.
involved in this now, that there's something around stimulating,
Yeah.
the system physically. And isn't it interesting? So in all of this, what I would say is we we are always talking about a path of integration, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, all of it combined. And the fact that medicine, the practice of medicine, is adapting more of the somatic work, more of the Ayurvedic work that Jen is in, more of the energy work that she and I are both in. It is incredibly timely, and it's been there all along. So it's fascinating to see what's coming online as everybody seeks new answers, and as energy work becomes more commonly known and accepted. And so I think that there's that, right? It's just finding the right pathways and the right language to have these connections. I love that we're in this dialogue. It is meaningful that we get to come here and practice new programs. That's what this whole series is about, is we let those who are our faculty members bring forward a big idea, and we program those in. And I didn't see all of what Jen's doing. She and I have presented this for the NCHL group in Ohio Health last year in the spring, but I haven't seen what she was going to do today. And so this is feeding what we teach, right? And how we explore with everybody. And Bill, I love what you said. What you're always doing, what we are always doing, and we've been doing for a while now, is that we're learning from our client interactions. Always. We can learn personally from whatever is in the space between us. And so that's really beautiful. Jen, this was lovely, very well done and presented and
Yeah.
clean and accessible, and all the things that you are and all the gifts that you carry in. And so thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank
No,
you for
thank you
bringing it to
everyone
life.
for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys are interested in bringing more of this into your systems, if you're representing a system, know that we're happy to integrate that into the work that we do through HCI, and you can access Jen for one-off conversations, obviously, and she's given you her website. So please do. We want each other to grow in this space. We want Jen to write a book. We want all of the things, as we want that for you all as you come online in this program. We want you to be front and center. We want you to be playing the biggest game you can imagine on how we heal, because we are the answer beyond the complete deconstruction of systems right now. We are going to be a part of the team. We signed up to be here at this space and time, in my opinion. And so we're going to be a part of how it gets put back together. And coaches have the unique ability around the world because we're in the same dialogue around the world. So you're going to have colleagues from everywhere. And I'm taking a stand on that. I've been taking a stand on that for 33 years. And I really feel like this is the time. So as you look out, don't be in despair, but really consider holding hands with those people who are tending this fire, and come as often as you can to this space as we explore new language. Thank you all.